Hey there, Jedi traders. David here of TradingFibs.com to bring you the daily trend for the futures in focus on the ES. As always, please seek financial advisor when trading with your money, as these videos are for educational purposes only. Support your knowledge in the market. See what's going through my head on any given day. Always make sure you have a solid trading plan and always manage your stop when placing a trade. Today, Tuesday, November 24th, as we head into the holiday here in the U.S., it was all about GDP data today, coming in line with expectations. The pre-market data you could see here overnight on the ES was straight shoot down from the 3:31 Eastern Standard Time on the sell signal. Excuse me, more in 3:30 time frame. Here's what we're talking about when we're talking about trend strategy. Again, outside regular trading hours, a little bit more challenging as I rely on the market internals. But here's the setup. The sell signal on the T3 moving average crossover. The 534 was in the red. Took another couple bars for the here for the 10 tick range chart to catch up on the ES. And once again, the 5144. So the last two bars here represent the market internals. Where is the bias, the technical bias in the market? Whereas the first two charts are primarily my entries. And if I have more charts in sync, the more the powerful the move that the trend could be. So this was coming into the market session. Already knew the overnight session was downside. And starting right, big picture for the first hour and a half of trading here, we could see the market opened right here with a nice buy signal to the upside on the ES with the 5 above the 34 and the 20 tick, 10 tick range chart on the ES upside. A market internal was in the green. It took a while for the 5144 market internal to catch up, but a clear indicating sign here in the buy signal, which was supported by other market internals I'm going to show you here in a minute. So let's break down these individual moves that were here and why we would have held off in particular from this move right here. The line in the sand up here was obviously the previous low at 2078.25. So any move up was going to be some resistance possibly there, an opportunity to perhaps take a contract off. As you can see, it's all in the green, all in the green. All of a sudden you get a red bar right there hitting the previous low, and you say to yourself, all right, I'll remove one contract. This might be the end of the trade. And it happened to be in the end as it price action rolled down. So let's take a look at that first setup here on the ES from the open here. Here you had a buy signal set up right at the market about post 2 minutes of the market open. Price action to the upside on 3 charts. Nice entry. Not the best, but a good entry. 3 charts in sync, and it was all green to the top. Now, depending on your trade management, you either place a trade and you take contracts off at a certain predetermined point, place your stop or break even. This might have been one of those trades where you went up a couple points, price action did come back down on you. One of my strategies is to keep my stop usually at least 1 to 2 bars away or at the swing size. And if I got everything in the green and I got 3 charts in the green, I'm going to probably let this run a little bit longer before I put my stop at break even. But that's for each individual person in their strategy. But again, the signal was clear. The market internals were there. On the 3 charts. The 4th chart didn't have it yet, but what was supporting this move was the additional market internals that I watch here. You can see the 10 tick, as we just saw on the chart before. You're seeing this bar down here, all in the green, but I'm looking at it again on another chart here, and I could see that I got Heikin Ashi bars. This is right here. Post 2 minutes of the open, I got solid body Heikin Ashi bars in trend. And there's that couple bars later that we were mentioning. Let's go back to the first initial chart here. You can see down here the 5144 finally broke to the upside in the green, so indicating a powerful move to the upside. And so that first entry to the upside was a good solid trade right out of the gate. Now, as price action continued throughout the first 1 hour of trading, you could see here after that first initial trade up to we had consumer confidence, which didn't come in line with expectations. And here we saw that drop and a pull up again. We mentioned before this little this white line here was the previous low, and obviously price action in the market was not ready to move above that. So that sell signal was definitely not a sell signal I would have gotten into, as we see just a slight crossover in the 534. But again, the market internals were all in the green. Sell signal way delayed from the crossover here on the T3 moving average. And what do you got? You have a previous low here, rejection. Look at that buy signal. It's nice, right? All in the green. That's not a trade. That's not a setup I would get into. I would at least wait for the breakout above the previous low to get into such a setup. And here you could see the market internals again taking that slight dip that we just saw on the sell bar back here. You saw price action coming down, and so market internal is taking a little bit of a reprieve here as it found coming down to support maybe at the T3 moving average at 10. Or finding at least support here at the 50 period moving average. And again, it's the big picture of the market internals. It's the 50 and the 144 relation, but it is well looking at the bars and how they relate to the moving average as well. So again, that obviously, depending on your trade management, you might have been out of the trade at this point, but for all intents and purposes, the market was still finding support here at the 50, and yes, it did. It did jump back up, as you saw, right back up here to the previous low. So there again was a couple Heikin Ashi bars. The bar signal crossed over. No way would I ever take a setup like that until at least it broke above the previous low. And here you can see price action did follow through. It's still in the green, and there was that support that you found at the 50 on that drop down. Price action bounced up, and we know what happened next. Price action returned on us. It obviously found a little bit of support here on the market internals at the 10 period moving average, coming down to the 144. So now my mindset is changing and saying, all right, what's happening here? We had this beautiful move up. It came down, bounced back up to the previous low up here, and now we see price action just not being able to break upside. So for me to look for a setup to the short that eventually did set up, as we see down here in this nice long trend, the question would be is when would have been the most opportune time? Well, here you go. You got a sell signal on a crossover. You got a 534 coming under, but the question is here at this time, you got to go back to this chart and say, well, where was my price action on the 5144? I'm still in the green. Market internals are up, and this might be a question of, am I just going to jump into the trade because the sell signal is there, or would I at least like to see price action break below 144? And that is usually what I wait for. So here you go, sell signal downside, 534, and look at that. The 20 tick didn't turn 10 tick market internal didn't turn red till halfway through the trade, and it took a while for the 5144 to cross. So I was looking for a sell signal where I had a T3 moving average crossover, a 534, and I wanted to see price break under the 144. So I see price running down. I say, oh, wow, what a great entry. If somebody took it from the previous low, they're having a great trade. Well, I decided based on my setup, I was going to wait for a pullback. And so, first of all, checking in with my AD line, the market internals. Again, I saw price action to the downside here. Interesting how AD line was downside at first, and then we had price action upside. But regardless, what we saw here on market internals is it was another reaffirmation that the price action was headed down because market internals couldn't break this 10 period moving average, and I saw price action leaning back down here to the negative 750 line. So I had to look for a re-entry, and so I found my market internals coming downside. 20 tick price action was downside, breaking under the 5144. Again, you missed the initial setup. Now we're in the red. Now we're in the red, just like we saw. Let's go back a couple charts. Here we go. We're talking about this portion here, red and red downside. Again, this is already delayed from the initial entry up here on the sell signal. And so what you have to do is you have to look for a pullback entry. You have to look for a pullback entry. Pullback re-entries on lower time frames would have happened. That's right. It didn't happen here, but if you go back up here to around the 10:15 hour, again, 3 charts in sync right here. Now that's no place to just take this to me would be called chasing a trade. I wanted to look for a pullback, and that first pullback was on a lower time frame. And so the setting that I watched the ES is on a 5-4 flex Renko. Bang, right there, pullback reentry on lower time frame. There was your initial entry, the setup up there. You add a nice pullback. I know it doesn't look like that right there, but it's a nice long tail up here. And price action pulls down, and you're watching a lower time frame, and there you go. There's your setup. Sell signal downside. You already have price action moving below the 50 and the 144 EMA, and eventually they do catch up, but this gives you an opportunity to get into the trade, into the downside. So wonderful trade to the downside, second best setup of the session. And as we moved forward, we saw price action bounce back up. Here we see price action on the market internals bounce back up to the here. Obviously, this was all the downtrend and finally caught upside, and you get a little bounce right at the bottom and right up here to the T3 moving average and right up to the 144. So again, if I'm going long, now the question is, am I going to get above that 144 EMA to get into a long trade here? And so we see price action had come down all the way, and here we see the crossover. So again, for some traders, that might be a great entry off the lows. They say, all right, look at that. I'm turning trend change here, solid Heikin Ashi bar. I go upside, and there again, once again, is a buy signal crossover. But again, it's delayed, just like we had. You didn't have all the internals working in your favor up here. Here you only have 2 internals. Again, you could jump on the trend right here on the crossover, but again, I always like to look for a pullback. So looking at my Fibonacci pullbacks, I draw a line from the upper high of the session to the lowest low. I can see price action rebounding, and so I know I see, that's right, look at it. You see price action moving up here on the crossover, and price action to the 50 period moving average. And the question is going to be, are we going to actually have a trend change? So is it going to go above the 50? Am I going to get above, or is it going to simply, stall there? Or am I going to get above that 61.8? If I get above that 61.8, now I have a trend change. And so evaluating market conditions here we saw the crossover. Again, this is the morning session that already took place. So we had our first entry up here, second entry on the pullback. And again, if for any reason you took the entry down at the lows, that was great. I want to wait for at least a pullback entry. Here again, I'm not so sure that price action is going to continue upside. And right there, that's that 61.8 pullback that we were just looking at on the Fibonacci's. It went right up here to 2074 to the upside. Now, if it breaks that 61.8, opportunity to get in to the trade. So here we are, 61.8, and what does price action do? It actually comes back down. So maybe we're not going to have a trend change. Maybe price action is going to continue what it did the night before. Again, this setup right here, this buy signal is not a good enough setup. It's got to be the best setup for me, and it just didn't clearly show that. And so here I go to my market internals on the bounce back up. Heikin Ashi bars are moving upside. I got a T3 moving average crossover on the 10 tick. I have the 50 above the 144. Things are looking much better, and bang, right there. There's the buy signal to the upside, all right? So now I have a good setup. 3 charts are in sync this time. I got price action above the 144. So again, while this worked out really great and it was a nice entry from the bottom, it wasn't the best entry for me, especially when price action bounced off that 61.8. And for me, I have no idea what's going to happen to the right of the chart. All I can tell you is that I thought that, hey, you know what? This might come back down and offer me an opportunity to the downside. If I broke that 61.8 and I had the market internals in my favor, like I saw here, solid Heikin Ashi bars, and 50 is now above the 144. Again, I could have taken that a little bit earlier back here. You are right, but I needed a little bit more of a confirmation of a pullback entry, and that was the buy signal, headed up again to the previous low. Now, what do we have? We have everything in the green, right? 2078, 25. We already hit that before. Are we going to reject here? Previous low? I don't know. Let's see what happens. No, it doesn't. There it goes all the way up. All four charts in sync now. Price action continue. All contracts on. And what do? Right to the lunchtime hour, we go to the 600-day VPOC and right to the daily gap, and we close out the daily gap. Again, if you were looking for a re-entry because you missed it, you had another pullback re-entry on a lower time frame here. So third best trade of the session on the ES, and there it is, 50 pulling away from the 144 on the market internals with the 10 tick upside. I mean, how grand is that to stay in the trend all the way to the upside, all the way up to the upside? And where did it go? You check in with your AD line, and that's right, we rejected right there at the zero, stall at the daily gap, stall at the VPOC, and price action took a little bit of a breather and came down off the daily gap. And again, started rebounding as we had a good look at the 51.44. We were finding support on the 50-period moving average. Another emotional way that if you've an emotional strategy, if you've placed your trade, if you took the original trade all the way, let's move back. If you took the first initial trade back here, great. If you got in here on the better setup, and you were still in the trade, everything green, you might have taken your first contract when you got up here to the daily gap, but this is a no-loss trade. You move your stop to break even. You let it chop a little bit up here. What keeps you in the trade is the 50 above the 144 and the 51.44 down here on the lower right chart, and the 10 tick is still all in the green. This isn't an in and out strategy. This is trying an attempt to stay on the trade as long as possible and market internals on the green. Can you do this on the futures? Can you do this on other markets? Yes, you can. It's the discipline of getting into the trade, waiting for your setup, and managing it on the way up. So there again, there's your re-entry signal up here. Above the daily gap was another opportunity as price action. So price action came back down. You might have still been on the trade earlier, but we saw another buy signal come on. 10-tick range chart is still in trend, higher time frame, and market internals, after rejecting the 50, we run it all the way up to the Globex high, and now we have a Fibonacci extension target up here at 2089 with an 85% probability of being hit. And yep, there it is, right almost at the 2 o'clock hour, Fibonacci extension with a slight entry up here. I would not have jumped in up here, but again, the 10-tick, you're managing this on the way up. Your entry was back here, the better entry, pullback. Price action breaks upside, you're above daily gap. You've got such a long trend going now. Now, the mindset is, this is it. We're not going any higher. We break above overnight high. You're managing on the way up, and you're right. Fib extension breaks a little bit higher. Where do we go? 2091 to the former VPOC. What a wonderful exit for the trade if you got out there, or you decide I'm still going to manage this way up on my way up. Find a recent swing size position. We're above daily gap. We've already hit that fib extension target. Do we have another extension target upside? Yes, we do. Here's the former VPOC. Maybe perhaps we're going to retest it, but what's keeping you in the trade? Market internals there, Jedi traders. You still have support here at the 50. Maybe we break it here, but your 10 tick is still upside. And we can see here now, price action does rebound all the way down to the daily gap. At this point, you might say, yeah, you know what? It's pre-holiday. I want to get out. I'm getting toward the end of the session. I got a crossover on the 10 tick. That's enough for me. What do? The market finds support here at the 144, and you say, that's it. I'm done. Or perhaps you're still in the trade with your contracts upside, because look what the ES did. Offered another opportunity as price found support here on the 144. Do you see the strength in using that 144, 5144 to your advantage, either to find new entries or remain in the trade? And price action finding that support here at the 144. Any entry to the upside would be a buy signal, and price action breaking back upside above the 50. And it would be nice if we got the 20 tick back in trend. And what happens? Oh, we got a Fibonacci pullback. That's right, on this trend down. Price action drawn from the high, Fibonacci high to low. We got a 50% pullback. We got a buy signal here that formed. Price action still finding support from here, the 144, the 50. And the question is, are we going to go back upside? And yes, we do. Price action finds to break through that 50% full fib pullback from the high to the low here. buy signal entry and bounces off the overnight high, bounces off the 50-period moving average, runs it right back up to the fib target. Still 10 tick, not in trend. But if you're managing this trade from the bottom or from that first re-entry on the pullback of the bigger time frame that we had all the way back at the beginning, you could see that you'd be simply perhaps managing this on the way up or just looking for clear signals. My preference at this point of day would have been to say, you know what, I'm managing on the way up. If I'm stopped out, I'm stopped out. I'm done for the day. Great trade on the way up. And so the ES continues all the way up here. You can see the AD line had a little stall. That was from the early morning session. Gets right up here towards the end of the session. That's right. We're looking at price action bouncing back up to the fib target. A little bit of stall here at the 750. Meaning maybe the AD line is just spewed out. It runs back up to the former VPOC. Again, another nice buy signal, even though you might have been hesitant to enter into the trade on this downslide for a 50% pullback. But trend is trend. You got 3 charts in the green here. You got a T3 moving average crossover. You got a 534. You got a 50 still above the 144. Yes, I would love it if all 4 charts are in sync, but pretty strong. Strength continues to the upside on the ES. We retest the former VPOC, and that was about it for the day. CAM high was above, previous high was above. We weren't going to go in and grab that. And what do? We have another Fibonacci pullback drawing from the low to the high on this draw. We retrace to the 50%. The 10 tick just barely being able to get back up. A crossover. Price action on the 51.44 comes back down to the 50 period moving average and breaks downside below the 61.8. We have the 10 tick finally breaking downside. You'll notice the T3 moving averages just kept holding in the red here. Price action downside underneath the overnight high, and so that pretty much was it. Again, you could have taken a sell signal here just on the idea that, or the strategy here, that the T3 moving average crossed over, the 5 was under 34, and you had the T3 moving averages crossing over on the bigger time frame on the 10 tick range chart. And there it was, the rejection on the AD line supporting that move to the downside on the last setup. And there it was. If you really wanted to get into the downside, instead of, here you go, you got that sell signal. You say, look, it broke the 61.8. I got my charts moving to the downside. I'm going to go to a lower time frame, and there you go. There's your sell signal to the downside. The T3 moving averages are downside. Price action is underneath the 51.44, and you say, great, I'm going to run it, maybe take my first contract off at the daily gap, and there she goes. She runs to the daily gap right with 15 minutes to go. T3 moving averages on the bigger time frame, 10 tick downside, and there you go. What did you do? You kept getting reject at the 50, indicating that this price action was most likely going to continue downside, and there she did. The 50 crossed the 144 down to the daily gap, and that was a wrap because AD line never able to break upside of that 750. And there is your big picture for the day on the ES. Setup number 1. Setup number 2, setup number 3 on the re-entry over here to the upside. You just managed it at the lower, at each higher low. That's it. All you had to do was put a stop at the each section. Even over here, you might have been stopped down on this drop down, but that's all right. All you got was another run to the VPOC, and the last signal downside, you could have gotten in on a smaller time frame if you really wanted to trade the end of the session. Let's take a look quickly at some of the other notable indices that had some great moves to the day. Again, there was that nice run up that we saw in the ES. Mirrored here on the Russell, had a nice buy signal, 1-2 charts, re-entry midway. Here was the Globex high. This would have been the preferred entry as we broke upside above the Globex high. 4 charts in sync, and there she was, Russell to the upside with some nice healthy ticks. Here we go on the YM as we see price action. Again, a nice move, break upside here, and here we go, break upside here. And just another opportunity to move your stop to the most recent swing size level and stay in the trend. So YM, a nice morning move as we saw in the ES and Russell. Same picture here on the crude. Crude right out of the gate with a buy signal to the upside. T3 moving average crossover, everything in the green. Up here in the mid 42s and reaching up to that 43s. Buy signal back at the high here. Re-entry probably about midpoint, but right out of the gate, all four charts and seeing that is a golden setup, as I like to see every single day. And there you go on the NQ. Nice setup to the downside and right back up to the upside again. Not the cleanest of entry. I just wanted to show you this chart to show you a nice trend. But again, as you can see, you didn't have all in your favor in the charts. And again, it took a while for even all the charts to catch back up. I would have preferred the setup more likely to the upside than to the downside. I would have had to go to a smaller time frame probably to find a re-entry on the NQ. But right out of the channel here, within a couple bars, he had three charts in sync, and to the upside was the big picture. All right, that concludes today's daily trend wrap up for the ES. Again, you can visit my website here at Trading Fibs for the trading session focus for November 23rd. Yesterday, I did a detailed analysis on the charts. Today, we're doing a video. Just go back and forth each day, deciding what pleases me as far as pictures or video. But again, the idea is to go back over your trading day, analyze what worked, what didn't work, and come back tomorrow again and see how you'll approach the market in a different way. Again, feel free to stop by at tradingfibs.com or any of my social media outlets to obtain more information. My mantra is one simple strategy: any market, any chart, any time frame will keep you disciplined. You guys can find me every day on Twitter at Trading Fibs. And as always, I leave the crystal ball to the experts. I only trade what's in front of me and on my charts. Have yourself a Blue Zone day. Happy pre-Thanksgiving. Have yourselves a good day, a good night, and good trading.